Hi, good morning, or is it afternoon from where you are? Welcome to this class, and I'll be taking us through news writing. And in this class, we are going to look at different types of news, and more specifically, hard news and soft news. We will be able to understand the other journalistic styles of writing, what journalists do in their everyday work, and we'll be able to understand the structure that is used for both stories, whether it's hard news or soft news, how to write editorials, how to write commentaries, how to write investigative stories, sports stories, etc., etc. As you will realize as we proceed, writing news is one of the most practical thing that we do in journalism. And if I can go back to the cut one we did, I realized most of us didn't even understand the kind of story that we were supposed to write based on the paragraph that I shared. And for that purpose, I decided to come and do this class so that we can be able to understand, and we can understand the reason why we have to write instead of copying from the internet what other people have written. We need to gain that skill, because this is our area, this is our field, and we need to be equipped with this knowledge on how to write different types of stories. So for us to be able to write our different types of stories, then we can agree that we need to understand the stories and their structures, what they entail, and how we can effectively write a story that can sell. Because in journalism, as we keep saying, our main content, our main commodity for sale is not like eggs or vegetables. Our content for sale is news item. And this news item is what will depend whether we are working, we have our job, or whether we lose it. If we can't be able to write news, if we can't be able to write scripts, then I don't think media has any business with us. They'll pick that one person who is effective, that one person who can do a compelling story, that one person who is able to tell stories and make our audience read or listen or even view. If you're writing for, when you're writing for the ear, that is the radio, we have the the listeners. When you're writing for newspaper, that is print media, we have the readers. When you're writing for TV, we have our viewers. That is because they are using the eyes. But as you will see, there's the difference between broadcast and print media, the same way there's difference between print media platform like newspapers, like magazines, and so the stories will also vary. And the way we write for radio and the way we write for TV is also different based on the characteristics of each, as we will see as we proceed. But for this class, allow me to look at two types of stories, that is the hard news and the soft news. And we start with understanding hard news. And we will understand as we proceed. But one thing I want you to remember is what is news. And news is in any information that is being heard for the first time, and it holds news values, what we call the news traits. News value. What is a value? It is something that makes something worth. Why should I be listening to this? Why should I be reading this? Because it has the value, it has the essence, it is timely, it's relevant, it is odd, it doesn't happen every day. In an ideal situation, it should not be happening, but it is happening. So this is what you'll be able to understand as we proceed. So hard news involves reporting on events or issues that are timely, that is what we talk of timeliness, factual, that is about truthfulness, and impactful. It has an effect to the target audience. So hard news are basically about the events such as accidents that are unfolding in the society, a natural disaster, political development, like now the way we've been having Gachagua, Kidiki, we have Trump. all these stories are based on political developments, crimes, a certain thug who has been nabbed by police, or a major issues that are unfolding in the society and they are of public interest. These are issues that are affecting people in one way or the other. So when you're writing hard news, the most important thing is to prioritize on certain attributes such as clarity, accuracy, and brevity. Meaning, when we talk of brevity, we need our story to be uh, simple, short, and easy to understand. Why? We will be understanding as we proceed. We have a target audience who read hard news. They don't have much time to keep reading a long story. The only thing they need is to have their questions answered, and it ends there. So when you're looking at that, when we look at the accuracy and brevity, we aim to provide important information to the target audience very quickly and without any delay, anything that could make them lose interest. So in this hard news writing, then we have a style that guides us on how to write, and we call it, a structure. It's called the inverted pyramid style or structure. When we talk of inverted pyramid, I know all of us have seen a triangle. It is that triangle facing upside down, and it is divided into three sections. It has one, the broadest, the topmost, which has the most important information. In this most important information part, we answer the 5 W's and 1 H. Now, this part is where we have the lead. The lead is the introduction of a news story. It is what summarizes what the story is about. In hard news, here we answer the 5 W's and 1 H that include who, what, when, where, why, and sometimes we answer the how there. But this one we have to be very careful to avoid clogging. Clogging is when we have too much information, so the lead becomes too heavy for even the target audience to comprehend. We lose them in the process. And because lead has its rules, as we will see, it can only accommodate at least 18 words. So you can imagine you have so many questions to answer, but you only require 18 words. And that is why most people say, most scholars will say, make sure that your lead doesn't go beyond 3 paragraphs. We go back to the cut we did. For most people I've written, your lead is too long. When you find a lead that has like almost 6 sentences, that is too long. I will read the first part, the first sentence. It has no full stop, it has no comma, it is just a continuous sentence, which makes it very boring. So it will not give me the urge to continue reading. So what we do as target audience, we forget about it, we trash it and move on to something else, because you will realize most of our target audience, they are not people who are very patient. They just need the 5 questions answered and how, and then they move on to other things. So the lead summarizes what we've said: who said what, when, where, why did they say it, and how did they say it, or what happened where, when, why did it happen, and how did it happen. So the lead should be concise. It should be at least 1 to 2 sentences, or at most 3, and then it should be straight to the point. What does that mean? It means that we need to practice word economy. There are words that can be replaced with just one word. For instance, assuming we have an accident this morning where there's the mother, the father, the children. Instead of writing the mother, child, and mother, father, and children, just use one word, replace the 3, family. There are words that we can use to combine the entire, like 4 words and give it one. So this is what we are talking of, word economy. And then make sure that your sentences are straight. Remember, when you're writing for media, our media has target audience. Like when you're writing for newspaper, our key target audience will be at the back of our mind. We are writing for a class 8 dropout. So this person needs to read and understand. This person may not hold a complex language. So we need to make it very easy so that even the way we answer these questions, it will be very easy on them. They can be able to read and understand. So answer exactly what happened. The president commissioned. Where was he? What time was it? This morning, this afternoon. What tense do we use in news? As we will see, we use present tense or present continuous. He will be. He has, not was. Apart from now print media, because print media reports about yesterday. But when you're doing for radio and TV, the tense remains active. It remains current. News is about timeliness. News, it's about the new occurrence. Anything that happened in the morning at 8, now it's 9, it's 10. It becomes stale. News is about the freshness. So our lead must be active. Our lead must use the present tense. It must use the active verbs. It is not the ball was hit by John. It is John hit the ball. The subject, verb, object is what we need in our news writing. Now, our story, of course, must have a headline. So even before we come to the lead, but the reason why I've skipped the headline, it is because we are able to write the headline once we are done with the story. So we'll be coming back to the headline. So the lead, we agree that it is the first paragraph of the news story that answers the 5 W's and 1 H. That is called a concept, the ideology, the idea. It answers those questions. Then we've said that it must be very short, precise, kiss it. And then we said that it should be straight to the point to avoid losing our target audience, whether it is the readers for newspapers, the viewers for TV, or the listeners for radio. Okay. Then we have the second part, which is the body. The body gives the details and the background. And mostly in most stories, this is where you find they answer the question how. Because how will have a longer explanation. So after the lead, any other information, it is important, but not very important. So we call it the important section in the inverted pyramid. Important information, whereby we give information now in descending order. So from what happened there in the first paragraph, then what else is important, less important, and it continues until the end. Okay? Then the most important part, after now writing the first part, the lead, will start first. And this will allow you to explain in a very simple way what happened. Then we get to the third paragraph. I have written this in most of you. When we get to the third paragraph, we give a direct quote. We call it a verbatim. Verbatim, why? Because it is given directly exactly what the expert said. In our story, we're talking of the accident that has happened this morning. And our expert is the area OCPD, for instance. So we'll say, what exactly did he say? 5 people have died instantly. The police boss has confirmed. If it is in the hospital, because you visited the hospital, we talk to the doctor in charge, where could be they can say, we received 5 bodies and 2 injured patients who are in ICU receiving treatment. And then who has said it? The doctor in charge has said. Why are we using this? The reason why we use these verbatim quotes, as we will see, it makes our story authentic. It makes our story more believable. Because we have a society, a target audience, who trusts information when it comes from authority. So we need this to make our story credible. So at this point, when we do the third paragraph, we have answered all the questions. We have given our target audience or all information, they require. So up to this part, the third paragraph, they can decide if they should continue reading the story or they leave it at that. If they left it at that, they will have information they require. So they can choose to leave it at that and then go to other things. Or depending on the way you've written, they also want to go to the least important information, which now comes after that. Like in the same example we are using, we've seen this in media when they say police are looking for the relatives of ABCD. That is not very important. It is the least important. So we just leave it at that. This least important is called the tail, or the least important details. So it contains any other supplementary information that is less important. And also it can also have the least relevant quotes, like what other people said, like could be any other witness who was there. Like I remember there's a time of a guy who witnessed a certain accident, and he said ni kama drama, ni kama video. So this is where we get these such quotes. Then once we're able to do that, then we have our story. We go back now to writing our headline. Our headline, the headline is simply the topic or the title of our story. Our headline will sell the news story. A headline, as you will see as we proceed, is what summarizes the entire story. It is what advertises the story. It is what determines whether the reader will read our story or listen to our story or not. Let's assume all of us have gone to our town centers and it's a chilly morning or even early in the morning. You find people crowding the vendors. One thing they want to know is the headline in a newspaper, for instance. If the headline is captivating, then they'll stand. They can also think of buying the newspaper. So it also promotes and increases sales. It not only summarizes, it also attracts the target audience. It sells or advertises the story. And it also helps in increasing sales. Remember, as I said previously, media is a business like any other. But our commodity for sale, what we sell, is not onions or tomatoes. What we sell is the news. The information is our content for sale. So we really need to be creative when we are coming up with our headline. And that is why mostly it is written after we are done with the entire story. And as you will see, what most writers do is to summarize the lead. The information that is in the lead is what is summarized to give us a headline. The headline should not be long. It should be very easy for someone to capture someone's attention. It should be very easy for someone to understand, and it should always remain ethical. Don't have an ethical, vulgar language so that your headline can sell. That will put people off. So we have some of the things that we need to do when you're writing and some of the rules. And one is to focus on objectivity and accuracy. When we talk of objectivity, is simply our main goal, our reason. Why do we write these stories? Remember, media has a mandate to keep a well-informed, educated, and entertained citizenry. This is what we do when you're looking at the roles of mass media in a democratic society, for instance, where we have media playing a very significant role. We call them macro functions of mass media. The major, what media do to the society, not what media do to an individual. That is called micro. But the major is the macro, which is to inform, educate, and entertain. The challenge comes in here. We are coming in third world countries, for instance, and we know that media today, currently, is a business, like I've highlighted. So are we able to perform these core roles of media? I don't know. These are questions that we can debate over and over, not ignoring the ideology of media control and media ownership. We can't ignore that. Even as we write our stories, because you'll find at times we'll go to the field and source stories, but we are not able to disseminate content as sourced. We'll discuss this as we look at media, which should be the next class, media ownership and control, so that we understand, even as we source for these stories, are we able to impart the same? Are we able to remain objective? But anyway, for us to be able to be objective and to retain accuracy, then we need to understand that we need to stick to the facts. Report information as sourced. The reality. Hard news should be factual and free from personal opinion, bias, and speculation. Because these stories should be verified. We talk of truth and justification. We say this is the reality. 10 people have died. If you're asked to confirm that, we can go to the scene of accident and we're able to count the many bodies, the 10 bodies. We're able to show the 10 bodies. And that is why we keep telling journalists when you're training you, don't base your stories on emotions. Wait until you get content, you get confirmation from authority. Often we've had media reporting of massacre. Then when the authority come in, they say only 5 people. So what happens? Because there's an outcry in the society, media said A, but the police are saying B. So of course the police will say media is not credible. And when this information gets to the people, then we are questioned, which we call flack, the negative criticism of the mass media, which doesn't act to our benefit. Flack is F-L-A-K. Okay? So when we look at this, then we realize the essence of sticking to the facts and reporting stories not based on our emotions. We don't give our opinion, meaning this story is not subjective. We, can I say, draw ourselves off of the story. We distance ourselves from the story and tell as it is. We wear a veil of ignorance, where behind that veil, we have no tribe, we have no religion, We have no class. We are just simple journalists who are running their mandates to keep a well-informed and educated citizen. Biasness. We don't give our opinion. We don't side with any side of the story. For instance, it's in politics. You're supporting candidate A, and there's a candidate B. You don't bring your self-interests to the story. In this story, you give events, you give facts as they are. Then we make sure that we don't base our story of speculation. I think. Ni kama, nimesikia, I've heard. People are saying, no, it is about factuality. Number two, when you're dealing with objectivity and accuracy, is to make sure that we get information from reliable sources. We'll be able to understand as we proceed the different types of sources we have in mass media. We can have predictable, anticipated, etc., etc. All these people, they give us information. They're our sources, our people who give us information, our contacts. We know as media personalities, we need to build on our contacts, the people who can give us any information, because we can't be everywhere every time. But we have these people, for instance, who are working for government. For instance, those are working in the police force. Those people who are there, like for instance, in every county we have reporters. They know when an accident happens. They're able to get there before we do. There's someone who can give you a leakage. Could be there's a corruption case that is ongoing. So we need to use reliable and credible people. People who are trustworthy. People who cannot give us stories based on hoax. Sio za ukweli. They give us authentic and truthful stories. So when we have these reliable sources now, how do we handle them? We'll be looking at dealing with sources. But one of the key things is to make sure that we always attribute. Not unless they tell you don't mention, which is not encouraged, mostly in hard news. We are expected to reveal our sources so that our stories can be credible and more believable. Not unless it's a life-threatening story that someone tells you, don't reveal my identity because of my security issues. These other times, we need to mention them and say exactly who has said so. The president has said, the deputy president has confirmed, the area OCPD, the doctor on duty, among others. So when we do this, when we attribute, when we quote them verbatim, directly, it ensures the story is reliable and it helps build trust with your audience. Remember, we need our audience to trust us. We need them to consume our stories. How can they consume our stories if we can't be able to tell them exactly who said that? It is not based on hearsay. And remember, often media has been criticized. Politicians criticize media every now and then. So we need to quote, just in case they need more information, they can reach out. So our sources must be people who are available. People who are ready, in case of anything, they can give more information. And then number three is to make sure that you double check your facts. Accuracy is very important. Before you report any story, can you go back and check, double check, not just checking, double check. Errors in reporting can lead to misinformation, and even very small mistakes we make damage credibility of news outlet. We've seen this happening so many times. We've seen media disseminating stories, and the people mentioned take them to court, and they are forced to apologize. By the time you're apologizing, even though we say error is to human, these are very expensive errors we can't afford. Because remember, the moment content is disseminated through media platform, people take it to be gospel truth. And here you're coming now telling us you made a mistake. It will cost you. You'll find people will start criticizing you. We are living in a society where media, especially like if I can give an example in Kenya where I belong, media is the fourth estate, meaning there's a lot of power in mass media. And media is always often being questioned by the people in power, the who. Media is being accused so many times. Like we've seen this, especially during campaign time, where different politicians will say this media is supporting A, B, C, and D, they're biased. So there has been many times where media houses have been criticized negatively and they lose viewership or readership. So it can be very expensive for us media personalities. So we must make sure that whatever content we disseminate remains accurate. And the only way we can be able to do that is to make sure that we double check the facts. To make sure that our media house doesn't stop. It continues selling and becoming the best. Number 3, we use clear and simple language. This one I've kept on explaining when I was starting. And I said that hard news should be straightforward. Avoid jargon. A jargon is a word that is used in a certain person's area of specialization. For instance, if I am writing my target audience, I'm writing for doctors, and I use our jargons like cut, roll, stand by, take 1, take 2, they'll not be able to understand. If I use the doctor's jargon and my target audience, they don't understand that language, any word that is used and the target audience can't understand, it becomes a jargon. Then there's the technical language. Avoid technical language or very complex sentences. In hard news, we don't use complex sentences because we've said our major aim is to keep a well-informed, educated, and entertained citizenry, which means we don't have a niche audience in hard news. It is for general audience. And we are considering that person who has dropped in class 6, class 7, class 8. So we write in language that they can also be able to comprehend. If you need to use any specialized terms, then can you explain them? Why? Because we need to bring everyone on board. Then make sure that you keep your sentences and paragraphs very short and easy to read. Keep sentences and paragraphs short and easy to read. How? Make sure that you don't have very long sentences. You can separate with a comma and then have a full stop. Then start it from another. Keep very short, because you and I can tell when we find very long sentences, we also lose it. We lose interest. But when the sentences are very short, then it becomes very entertaining. It's not annoying to the brain. Number 4, it is to provide the context and background when necessary. Meaning that when we write hard news, it should be focused on the current events. That is what we said. It's about the timeliness. And it should be able to explain briefly the context. The context or the background. Context can be in terms of the time where it happened, the setting, the environment, etc. So this will help the reader understand its significance. Remember, we are talking of, like, we are luring the reader to follow us, to read our stories. So we need to make it understand. And that is why proximity, the distance, the geographical distance of the story, where the story occurred, has more weight. Any information that is affecting you directly, that is near you, it becomes of essence. But a story that is happening far from you, what we have is distance suffering. Like now we're having politics. Any politics that is happening within your country has more weight than any politics story that is being disseminated. In fact, like yesterday, I saw someone asking, why are people so eager to know what is going to happen to US? They should be so keen on what is happening in their country. It took someone now to make them understand why the West politics has more weight in African countries. But for most people, they are saying that doesn't affect me in any way. But what is happening within your geographical location affects you directly. So the more how we attach in significance to stories is based on the proximity. For instance, if you're reporting a political scandal, make sure that you bring that political issue to the society you belong. Then use brief sentences. When we talk of background now, you give brief sentences, one or two, of the history, the historical context of the person involved or the political issue involved. Why is this important? The historical context is important. It is important because we are able to relate. It is not nothing, it's not new. It's something that has happened previously, only that it is recurring. So we are able to understand, like when we talk of corruption within African countries, we have where it emanates. When did it start? For most countries, they say corruption has always been there ever since independence. So at least we have a point of reference. We can refer to the history. And then we also report on this story. Like when they say there are several places that are prone to accidents. So can we bring that background? It is not the first time that accident is occurring in that area. It is a black area, for instance. Then number 5, make sure that you follow the 5 Ws and 1H concepts. Now, when we looked at the lead, we said mostly what we use is not mostly, what we use in hard news is the inverted pyramid, where we have the most important. And when I was explaining, we said that the most important information is what gives us the lead. And we said in the lead, we answer the 5 Ws and 1H. So here we're going to explain the 5 Ws and 1H. So who, we said it has who, what, when, where, why, and how. And I said in a very simple narrative, it is who did what, where, when did it happen, why did it happen, and how did it happen. So who simply answers the question, the person or the organization involved. It is about prominence as a news value. Big fish sell. Big fish here means the big people, big organizations, the president, the deputy president, the prime minister, the governor, the senator, the area MP, organizations, Safaricom, Mount Kenya University, the Nairobi University. Look at those big organizations that command the day. Any story that is touching on who will make more sales than a story that is based on oddity. Oddity is what we used in our Cat 1, the story we gave. Prominence comes first. Oddity will also sell, but when we use oddity mostly, we don't mention the person immediately. We use the delayed effect lead. But here, when we use prominence or who, we start with the person or the organization using the immediate effect lead. We will see this when you're looking at the types of leads. Then what happened is the event or the situation. It was an accident. It is politics. It was sports. The issues that give us or make news. Then when did it happen? The date or the time. This morning, this afternoon. Okay? Where did it happen? Proximity. In Kenya, along Nairobi Wayaki Highway, along Thika Nairobi Highway, in Mombasa, in Kisumu, in Uganda. Why are we so concerned with proximity? It's because of what I've said. Anything that is happening around you, your place, it affects you directly. It has more weight than something that is happening away from you. Then why did it happen? So this is the significance or the cause. The driver lost control. There was an oncoming vehicle. It was overspeeding, for instance. Why corruption why is there corruption in the society? Could be bad leadership. And then how we give the details of the process or the event, how it unfolded. Because we didn't put good measures. There was a loophole. That is why money was looted. Because the driver lost control. That is why the vehicle lost its way, could be. And then hit an electric pole, for instance. There was an oncoming vehicle. There was a head collision, and then it rolled to the ditch. Number 6, we use active voice, always in hard news. I said previously is about John kicking the ball and not ball being kicked by. The moment we use the word by, by, it becomes passive. So always in hard news, we use present tense, especially when you're writing for broadcast. In this manner, I mean broadcast, TV and radio, because print, newspapers report about yesterday. But if a story you're doing is for broadcast media gives real-time information. So we use present tense or present continuous. The president will be, or the president has commissioned. The doctor has confirmed. That has is very important. Will be shows it is a continuous thing. It didn't happen yesterday. So even though the story you're covering happened in the morning at 8, you have to bring it to the timeliness. Timeliness is a news value. It's about currency. Human nature has a way of attaching importance to any story that is unfolding immediately than something that happened yesterday. In fact, in my country, there's one statement and a meme I have seen so many times. Here tunayo, meaning we have that one. So we know. And remember, people, my students, we are dealing with a population that is well connected. We are enjoying a great deal of technology. We can afford smartphones. We can have access internet. So we have citizen journalism. We'll be looking at this when we look at internet. And when you look at citizen journalism, they are able to report stories from the ground when events unfold. So by the time we are getting there, the stories have been there. 5Ws and 1H has been covered. So how then do we tell our stories? If we have to report these stories and still answer the 5Ws and 1H, we can't say it happened at 8 and we are reporting at 1. Everyone will have read the story. So we discuss the so what of the story. Yes, it happened. So any details that they must have left out. But if it happened yesterday and want to tell it now, we'll treat it as it is happening right now. We'll not say yesterday. We'll say 5 people have been reported dead. We bring the currency, the nowness in that story. Because remember how we defined news. Any information that is being heard for the first time. Then we use active voice. The president has signed the bill, the financial bill. Not passive. Passive is when we use, it was signed by the president. Don't forget, we've said that active voice is very important. If we want to sell our commodity, and it is so much preferred in hard news because it makes the story current and more compelling, more believable. And it brings that urge of knowing. Remember, we need to keep a well-informed and educated citizenry. So we must be very careful when you're writing these stories. And then number 7, always incorporate quotes, which we said in the tail, not the third paragraph in the tail. The third paragraph, we said we give verbatim quotes from experts, from prominent people. And then towards the end, we can also give a witness account. So we give quotes and attributes when we looked at objectivity and accuracy. So direct quotes from key sources, such as the government officials, key eyewitnesses, experts, etc., to make sure that we add authenticity and depth of a news story. Always make sure that the quote is relevant, it suits, it makes sense, it is precise, and it is well attributed. Then make sure that you introduce your quote in a way that is smooth. It is able to get into the news story and fit in with the narrative, with the story you've been telling in the first paragraph and the second paragraph. Then number 8, I think it's remain neutral. Remember when we talked of our opinion, self-bias? Even when you have a story that is controversial, always maintain a impact tone. You don't have to say like, I support A and disregard B. Your tone can tell. You're non-verbal when you're interviewing them, for instance, in TV. Your body movement, the non-verbal communicator. Remember, they complement the verbal communication. So even as you ask questions, your tone must always be impartial. Avoid being subjective, inserting your own opinion, or making judgment. You're not there to make any judgment, by the way. You're there to report the story as it is. Your opinion, you give it to yourself. Hakuna maoni yangu. No, here we don't have maoni. Here we tell the story as it is. And then we said, quote unquote, you remove yourself from the story and report what you can see. So don't make your judgment about either the event or the individual. If you need to give an opinion, that is why we have feature stories. And feature stories are subjective in nature. If the story now has conflicting viewpoints, start points, make sure that you present them fairly, giving each party an equal time to be heard, impartiality. Let every person get their equal chance. If you're giving A 10 minutes, give B 10 minutes. Don't base your journalistic practice on your interests. It is about the people. It is not about you. It is about your target audience. Remember, we are the people who represent the target audience. They have faith in us. They've put us, they agree and they believe that with media, they are well represented. So we can't ignore that fact. We can't kill that trust from our target audience. Then number 9, use the right headline. I have highlighted previously that headline summarizes the story, it sells the story, it advertises the story, among many others, as we will see. And we'll look at the different types of headlines we have in print, media specifically. So what we need to do with the headline is to make sure that it's clear, it's direct, and it is able to communicate the most important aspect of the story. Meaning that your headline should be so simple such that it can grab attention without any challenge. And it should not be subjective. It should be able to capture the story, grab attention, and make people want to know more. The moment we do that, then of course, we maximize our sales. And remember, in media, we discuss the size. The size of a newspaper, the size of a radio station or TV station is not about the length and the width. No, it's about the sales. And I have said time and again, our commodity here is news. So we have to make it very easy and very captivating, compelling, to make sure that it sells. So how do we achieve this? By using the right headline. I consume Nation, News, and Citizen. And there's one thing I admire, which I would want us to discuss as we proceed. The way Nation does its caption on stories. In a very compelling way. If you asked me, it is very attractive. Several people have argued and looked at it differently because every person is entitled to their opinion, and it's a provision in the Constitution, by the way, that every person should be entitled to their opinion. They should be given their leeway to give their opinion. And so my opinion, for me, it is that they have a very good way of doing their caption in a very humanistic way, though they've been criticized of trivializing very important information. I don't know your take, but you will tell me your take on the same. But if you ask me, it attracts my attention. We have different target audience, and the way we understand and interpret information is different, so you have to respect that. So use the right headline to make sure that it captures attention, and make sure that you're not sensational. Then consider timeliness. That is number 10. Make sure that you consider timeliness. Make sure that your story is on time. Hard news should be written and published immediately. It is about real-time information. So timeliness, as we'll see in the news value, is a key aspect of hard news, and it involves reporting events as they unfold right now in the most very recent past. So always make sure that you remain current with your update as a media personality, and have notes for any developing story within the society. Ensure that your story reflects the most recent information, because any other information you give that is past, it becomes stale. As you will see as we proceed, is that hard news is highly perishable, meaning they lose value very fast. And that is why you'll find, if it's today, hardly do we find people buying a newspaper that was yesterday. Hardly do we find ourselves, if we have a way of going back to information that was reported by media yesterday, we'll be looking for what is current. I keep asking my day students, what is trending? I don't ask them what was trending yesterday. What is trending? What is that one story that people are discussing? What agenda has media set today? Because media has that power to set our agenda. What we discuss, how we discuss, and even when we discuss it. This we highlighted in agenda setting theory. Agenda setting. What is the main thing that is being discussed? Why? Because media gives us the content they feel is in line with their interests. Through framing, the angle they use to frame is to give an angle or a perspective or a lens through which we see things. Through priming or timing, which is a psychological, priming is a psychological process. Those pictures they keep there, what time did they bring it? Why is it that when there's a very serious information story, it captures the first story. It is slotted in the first segment, in the segment of news, the first story there. Then they bring it as breaking news. It is in red. It is repeated over and over. Why is it that in print media, they place these stories in the first page of a newspaper, the placement of stories? Why is it that the headline is in bold, it's big, it has a bigger font like any other, than any other story, than any other writer that is done? It is the priming, timing aspect. Then we have the get as another very important element, how media will set our agenda. You, as the media personality, can tell us, dictate what we discuss and how we discuss it. Gatekeeping, sieving information, which is done by either media personality, the people, the journalists, or even the media house. There are media houses that will not disseminate some stories because of interest. There are some advertisers who will have very marketable stories that the target audience would want to read. But simply because these advertisers provide revenue for media houses, we spike these stories. It's about gatekeeping. An ethical story sourced from the society is not disseminated as it is sourced. Being unethical in journalism is an offense that can never be forgiven. So, just a round up to conclude, the final tips on how to write a compelling, objective, and accurate news story is: one, stick to the topic. Avoid any unnecessary information. Every paragraph you should make sure that it serves the purpose of disseminating important content. Number two, edit edit, edit, edit. I've repeated edit several times. We said that we have to make sure that we give correct information. We have the right command, the grammar. So we can't, we say that any error in media is very expensive. We can't afford. Then make sure that you trim word economy. Remember, you have a limitation of words. Hard news are not long. During your free time, I want you to look at stories in a newspaper. I'll also want you to look for content in, watch news, listen to radio news. You'll find we have a news hole of 30 minutes. A news hole is that time allotted to news broadcasts. And news broadcast, the major news broadcast, as you've realized, is at 1, at 9, at 7. And within this time, it is 30 minutes. But within that time, we have so many bits. A bit is an area of specialization. We have weather, we have hard news, we have business, we have sports, we have advertisements that occupy most of the time because of revenue. And all these stories have to be told within this given time. So we can't afford to give a lot of information. What you do is to summarize. We trim, gatekeeping, avoid any unnecessary words, and ensure that your sentence structure and every sentence is effectively written and it contributes to the entire story. Then focus on clarity, objectivity, timeliness, and make sure that your hard news informs and engages your target audience. Remember, our core mandate is to keep a well-informed, educated, and entertained citizenry. These are some of the major roles of mass media, though we have others, like whistleblower, watchdog, agenda setting, surveying, interpretation, etc., etc. And with that, we come to the end of our class today. And I hope it is worth the time. So thank you and see you. I will communicate when we'll be having the next class so that we can meet and discuss further. But I just hope this will be of essence. And I hope now that we have this content, we are able to go back to the stories we wrote and rewrite the stories following up on that. During your free time, also look at the different types of leads that we use for hard news. One is the immediate effect lead, where we identify the who immediately. President William Ruto has this afternoon. That is an example of immediate effect, blah, 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 blah. Then we have the delayed effect lead, and just like the word insinuates, the who is identified towards the end, because mostly the who is not known. The who can't sell. A good example is with the serial killings. Mostly you find the police are looking for a man who has been blah, 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 blah. They give the story. And then towards the end is when they mention the name of the person. But this lead is a very important lead also. It sells, and it has the ability of being developed to take the immediate effect lead. Look at Onyancha in Kenya, who was a serial killer. The story started when Onyancha was being hunted by the police because of killings. But later, because it's an issue of public interest, it was developed to lead, to take the immediate effect lead. Then we have the summary, which is mostly used. We have the summary lead, which we know, where it answers the 5 Ws and 1 H. immediately off. Also, 5 people are feared dead this afternoon after the vehicle they were traveling in. Da 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 da. It answers all of them. And then we have like the punch. Let's take, for instance, when our former President Moi died, most of the newspaper could have a headline like the former president is dead, or the president is dead. It gives punch immediately, hitting the nail on the head, among many, many others you will see, but mostly those 3 or 4 are the mostly used leads in hard news. Also look at the different types of leads we have. Not the leads, sorry. Look at time news values. News values, it is the trait, the characteristic that makes a story newsworthy, being termed as news. A characteristic is what makes you. What makes you? What defines you? So what is that one thing that defines a hard news? It is the news value or a news trait. This can be either timeliness, number 2, prominence, number 3, number 2, I mean prominence, number 3, proximity, number 4, oddity or bizarre, number 5, relevant, yes, relevant, number 6, conflict, 7, human interests, among many others. So during your free time, please look at that. Let's purpose to practice writing. Visit the chat room. There are several questions that have been posting there. Take time to answer. Don't copy from chat GPT. Just make it very simple. What do you think it is based on the information you've gathered, based on the what you're reading in your module? What do they really represent? So take time to answer those questions. And with that, we come to the end. Have a nice one.